Welcome to the People Leader Accelerator Podcast. I'm Executive Coach Jess Yuen, joined by my co-host, the co-founder and managing partner of People Leader Accelerator, Andrew Bartlow. On this show, we dive deep with business and HR leaders to uncover what really works when it comes to building high-performing organizations, navigating leadership challenges, and making better management decisions. Whether you're the first people leader at a startup or a seasoned executive at a company with scale, you'll find practical insights you can apply right away. For show notes and free bonus resources, visit peopleleaderaccelerator.com/podcast. And if you're looking for hands-on support from developing your leaders to creating a high-performance culture to hiring the right people, visit us at peopleleaderaccelerator.com. We'd love to help. Let's get into today's episode.
This episode is a little different from our usual conversations. Instead of interviewing a guest on the People Leader Accelerator podcast, it's just the two of us, Jess and I, talking through how we think about leadership and culture, and the kinds of questions that come up when we're not on a more formal interview. It's a more candid, unscripted conversation, and a bit of a chance for you to get to know us and how our own experiences shape the way that we see the role of people leaders. Hope you enjoy. So we're talking about what topics might be of most interest to our listeners. We thought that conferences and maybe communities in the HR world might be interesting.
Yeah. And I love it because I think this is a question we get asked a lot of like, where should I be spending my time? I think many leaders understand it's helpful to have a network that they're building, exposure to other people, but really where are the places where it's worth the ROI to put time in? Because I feel like any of these, whether it's a conference or a community, what you put in is what you get back. And I certainly have joined communities or gone to conferences and felt kind of like, ooh, maybe I didn't take advantage of that as much, or gotten into a community and then realized, oh, I don't have the time or the capacity to really get back out.
For sure, explore and innovate and do some stuff outside your day job. But in my LinkedIn post, I suggested that 10% of your time might be more the target than 50%.
For me, I look at it as one, maybe two conferences a year. So that's kind of like biannually every 6 months, getting that input of like the latest and greatest. And then one or two communities that I am more actively involved in, where I'm going to events or chiming in on the forums. I've found, at least for me, more than that is just hard to track, frankly. And I'm curious, what do you target, or how do you think about how much to participate in? Because I know you're also running a community yourself. How do you think about that in conjunction with how many conferences to attend on top of that?
It's a real decision point that I think the bar keeps moving for me. Like, I want to spend my time in a way that is really useful. So with People Leader Accelerator, we used the HR Transform. I guess now it's just called Transform. They dropped the HR. We used the Transform conference for 5+ years now as our excuse to gather a really distributed group in person. And so it was kind of a twofer. You go to this conference, you see all the people that you know in this space, the best thought leaders, the two birds with one stone concept.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think Transform has become a pretty center point for many HR leaders, at least in the circles we run in. And I know Startup Experts also does a similar thing. And last year I was able to catch up with both the PLA community and the Startup Experts community. And then many vendors are there. So a few of my advising clients like Athena and Hone were running events. It was this amazing place of feeling like almost like a high school reunion of here are people I just haven't seen in a while and being able to see them all in one place.
Yeah, I think Transform is unique for the venture-backed tech community in that it's, still a pretty niche audience, although it's getting bigger and bigger. And I'll say it, it's becoming more commercial and it's becoming more vendor-centric, and it's obviously more pay-to-play. I've been on stage every year that I've gone, and may not be this year, because I didn't want to write a check. I'm going to see my people, and I don't need to pay to be on a stage to do that. So I need to think hard. Like, I continue to pay for tickets to go to the conference, and then the hotel, the win, and the flights and the meals and hosting a dinner for our PLA buddies. And it's probably my single largest line item expense on the PLA budget. More than adjunct faculty, more than our own conference. So we'll see. I'll go this year and want to get the most out of it. I think you're exactly right, Jess, that you can only pick a few to go deep in.
Yeah.
And I'm actually actively starting to think about opening the aperture a little bit and considering going to a few different conferences, in part because I feel like I've gone so deep on Transform and the community around that. And I wonder if it would be useful to go a little deeper in some other niches that are adjacent to that group. Before we get back to the conversation, here's a quick word about People Leader Accelerator. HR leaders, the People Leader Accelerator is a 16-week program plus a lifetime community. Applications are open now at peopleleaderaccelerator.com. All right, back to our discussion.
I mean, the other thing about Transform that I found interesting for me is maybe because there were so many people I wanted to catch up with, but I actually didn't spend much time on the content and attending the conference as I thought I would. Not snuck in, I had a ticket, but like I went in, like I was legit, I was listening and sitting there and it was good, but I wouldn't say I was hearing things that made me think, oh, wow. And maybe I was at the wrong panels because there's also a lot that's going on. But I do feel like when I went to Transform the first couple of years when they started and they were still called HR Transform, I had a lot of like, aha, wow, I didn't think about it that way moments. And I don't know, I may be just further along in my career, or I'm talking to people who are on the stage regularly. So maybe I'm hearing it ahead of time. But that was one thing I will call out is like, I thought Transform was a great place for networking with people you already know.
Bingo.
And maybe not as much of the place where I was like, wow, I thought about that in a different way, or I'm hearing a different perspective, or even the way they phrase this thing that I've been thinking about really helps to kind of hone in on that opinion for me. I will say, I know we were talking about CPOHQ, which is Noetics conference, and they started
Elevate.
last year. So this is the second year that they're running it. And it was born out of having attended Transform and seeing how big it was, that it informed their approach of trying to make it quite small and intimate and really high quality content and a very curated audience of who was going to be there. I'm eager to return this year and see how that goes. And they actually had scheduled it last fall and they pushed it off for 6 months because they said, look, we have such a high quality bar and we haven't been able to kind of put together a program that we think is going to be worth everybody's time, which I thought was pretty ballsy, frankly, because, everybody marks this in their calendar like a year in advance, right?
You never really know if it was the quality bar or if they were still trying to sell tickets. I don't want to throw any shade because actually based off of your recommendation, I'll attend CPOHQ's Elevate conference here in mid to late April. So I'm looking forward to that. And it seems though, even though it's way smaller, which generally I think is good, the intimacy is good. HR Transform is, call it 4,000 people nowadays.
Yeah.
And Elevate, I think, is 200 ballpark.
Yeah, last year was 150.
Even though it's smaller, I feel like it's still kind of the same People Tech Partners posse.
Let's expand then, right? When I was getting started in the HR space, everyone's like, SHRM. The SHRM conference is the one place you gotta go. I've actually never been.
I've been.
I'm curious. Okay. And for anybody listening and not watching, Andrew made this incredible face. You should go to the video and check
the gag me
opinion.
with a finger. Yeah. I went to a SHRM conference in San Francisco, call it 10 years back at this point, in part because I got a free ticket. I was still in-house at the time, so I guess it was a while ago. And I went in part because of the keynote speaker, which was Patrick Lencioni. And I've really respected his work with the Table Group and 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, his book. And I do a lot of work around some of those principles and models. But, oh my goodness, the vendor load was pretty intense. Like you had to walk through the gauntlet of every booth. And I sat at a table where I was the only in-house person there. Actually, there was one person there from Blizzard Entertainment, but everybody else was a vendor. I left early. I saw Patrick Lencioni speak, and then I cruised out.
The vendor load is real. I remember being surprised naively because I attended my early conferences and your email address just gets blasted to everybody. And so you get onto like 100+ emailing lists after the conference. And I'm like, I didn't sign up for anything. That's what's going on. When I sign up for conferences, I actually do like my email plus Transform or plus whatever the name of the conference at Gmail or whatever your company's name. And then I filter based off of that. So I can actually just keep it out of my inbox.
That is an awesome tip. I don't know if everybody realizes this, where like the email will still get to you, but if you put a plus and whatever, that allows you to create some filtering rules in Gmail. I don't know if you can do that in Outlook the same way, but I've used it for other purposes and didn't think about it for this one.
Yeah, it's great for conferences.
Cool.
Okay, so we've talked about Transform, we've talked about CPOHQ, we've talked about SHRM.
Yeah.
What are the other ones that we should touch on here?
I've attended 2 or 3 years in a row the Hunt Scanlon Private Equity and Venture Capital Talent Partner Forum in San Francisco. And sadly, that's pretty vendor heavy as well. Like vendors, we don't hate you. Jess and I are kind of vendors as well, but we have more of our feet in the operator space. I go to conferences, though, to reinforce my network. It's more about getting to know people on a deeper level and understand some best practices. And yeah, you want to be where the action is. And I don't think the action is, constantly being sold to. So the Hunt Scanlon, maybe I'll go again, but I haven't learned anything new. I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with people. It's hard to get to San Francisco. I'm considering the PEI, which stands for Private Equity International events. There's one coming up in Napa in March that conflicts with Transform that I won't go to this year, but maybe I'll go to next. And then there's something in New York City, Private Equity International Human Capital Talent Partners. So like I do a lot of work in PE around org effectiveness. And if you're in that kind of niche group, you want to be around people like you and jobs like you with organizations like you're a part of. And so I might spread my wings and try that one out. There's another one. I don't think you attended it. Modern People Leader has been hosting gatherings. They're largely based in Austin. They have one coming up. I went to one in San Francisco at the Envoy offices. There were 100, 150 people there, and PLA showed up in force. I think we had 12 or 15 people in the audience, which was really cool. I like those. It's like a live podcast with the MPL folks.
Troop HR, I've been hearing, is a community that a number of folks have joined. I know Melanie Naranjo, who's been on our podcast before, is an active member in that. And I've heard wonderful things about their events. And I think that tends to be a smaller, close-knit group.
I've heard Sarah Ward, who is part of the Troop HR regional leadership in SoCal. She's been to their event, which I think is in Florida most times. And she was talking about it being mostly fun, like mostly a party.
Just hanging out more so than like exchanging ideas or something more work-oriented.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that explains why it's so so fun. It's meant for fun.
And she was very positive about it. Like I'm couching that as, that she's a fan.
But what a great way to connect with people in an environment that's outside of the workplace and not talking about work, which I don't think we often afford ourselves.
The real relationships, in my opinion, are what matter. Maybe this is a transition into talking a little bit about communities if we have time. I think of professional communities as a T shape. So some are big and broad, but kind of shallow. And so it's transactional. You're one of thousands of people. You may not have ever really met any of those folks. You're not going to talk about anything in depth. It's shallow, big and broad, the top of a capital T. Where I think there's real value is the bar of the T, the column of the T. And that's more narrow, more niche, more intimate, where you go deeper. And by necessity, that needs to be a smaller group. I think of People Leader Accelerator as the column of a T, and maybe a troop or a startup experts or something else would be the bar. And there are really good things that they do, but I'd suggest you probably only have time to engage deeply in one of each. Probably not 3 columns or 3 rows. Different communities for different purposes probably makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it. And it leads to a parallel in conferences, that going to a conference that's huge and thousands of people has certain value. And then going to a much smaller, like dozens of people event lends different value. And just being clear about what you want to get out of it, I think really helps. I remember before I went to Transform last year, I actually hadn't gone in 5 years to a conference that big. And I was a bit overwhelmed. And I remember sitting down and thinking, okay, this will be successful if, And I just started to write down if I can attend this handful of events for the smaller communities that I'm part of, if I can reconnect with at least a dozen people that I haven't talked to in the past. And so some of these bigger conferences we haven't talked about, but like Unleash, there's a bunch out there that are in the thousands. I would suggest also sit down and think about what would make it worthwhile that you've paid for a ticket and you've taken a couple of days out of your work, because that work doesn't go away. We're doing it some other time, to allocate to learning or to networking or whatever your goal is.
That's well said. Agreed. I hear that Unleash tends to be more focused on enterprise organizations, and you'll get like the big corporate service providers, like the accounting firms and the big consultancies. But I haven't been. HR Tech Conference, I've heard about. I think similarly, that's more upmarket.
Responsive Conference. There's so many. I know there's an HR Analytics Conference, like Wharton does some conference on that side that I've heard great things about. So there's stuff out there. And I would say ask people in your circles if they have opinions as you're thinking about it and trying to craft how you want to spend your time and what your goals are in attending.
Jess, I think you nailed it. Just have your intention in mind and be selective. Don't try to do it all. That's good advice.
Awesome. Likewise, Andrew. Great insights.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of People Leader Accelerator Podcast, where we talk with business and HR leaders about what makes great leadership and great work. We hope you walked away with at least one game-changing insight for you and your team. You can find show notes and free bonus resources at peopleleaderaccelerator.com/podcast. If today's conversation sparked something for you, hit subscribe, leave a quick review, and share this episode with that one colleague who really needs to hear it. You know who I'm talking about. And if you're currently navigating the tricky waters of hiring top talent, developing leaders who actually lead, or building a culture that fuels growth, let's talk. You can find us at peopleleaderaccelerator.com. We're here to help you and your team not just survive, but truly thrive. I'm Jess Yuen, and on behalf of my co-host, Andrew Bartlow, thanks for investing your valuable time with us. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. Until next time, keep learning and keep leading.